What kind of
Let's go.
Don't fall asleep.
Hello and welcome to Horror Culture Shiver, the show that discusses all the masterpieces and trash pieces of genre cinema. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we've reached the end of 5 weeks at Freddy's.
We have. It's gone so quick.
It has. And also, if you're listening on day of release, happy Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Today would be Halloween.
It is. It is. Yeah, so every year we bring you a Halloween special, but this year, do you know what? It's 2 in 1 because this deserves to be a Halloween special in itself.
Yeah?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Why. I mean, because this is a sequel that I will, not that I need to, but I would defend to the death. I mean, I have so much love for this film. It constantly swaps in and out with Dream Warriors as my favourite Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. A film that is so ahead of its time and just a perfect horror film in many ways. It is Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994, or as it's known in Japan, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Real Nightmare.
Oh, I mean, that's true. It's accurate.
Yeah.
Hasn't got the same ring to it, I'm not going to lie.
No.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare is a good title.
Yes.
By 1994, Wes Craven's name meant a lot, so to have that in the title is better than Wes Craven Presents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which isn't synonymous with classics.
No, it's not. But yeah, it's at this point the franchise had hit a wall because they tried to kill Freddy off in the last one.
Well, they did. I mean, that was the wall.
That was the wall. They did it in a go and listen to our episode to find out how they did it, and you'll realize why it was a terrible idea. And it wasn't a satisfying conclusion to the franchise.
No.
And as we all know, when the words final or dead in relation to a character are included in a horror franchise's name, it doesn't mean much. You know it's going to be back.
Yeah.
There's never, and I don't think there ever will be, a final film in a franchise. I don't think any franchise would just die off for good.
No, not when money's involved.
Exactly. And in this case, it's a very good thing because we get this film. Written and directed by the legend that is Wes Craven. Of course, you know, the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. Scream parts 1 to 4. The Last House on the Left. The Hills of Eyes 1 and 2. Deadly Friend. Cursed. The People Under the Stairs. The Serpent and the Rainbow. So many great films. And I think in the past we've been a little easy to think that maybe he's got more, or he's got a balance of good and bad. But actually, I think, having not watched all of his filmography, but judging from what we have seen, I think he's got more bangers than he has bad films.
I think so. He's one of these directors where the good is really fucking good, but the bad, it's not great. But just off the top of my head, I think I haven't seen every single Wes Craven film, so I can't judge fully, but from what I've seen of his filmography, more good than bad.
Yeah.
And a few masterpieces there.
Yeah.
You know, not many directors can honestly say that they changed horror cinema 2, potentially even 3 times in their career.
I mean, you know, I always say my joint first favourite horror franchises are Scream and A Nightmare on Elm Street, both created by Wes Craven.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Before making this, he watched all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films back to back, and by the time he was finished, he claimed that he could not follow the storyline at all.
Mm-hmm.
So...
With you there, Wes.
Yeah. He says the sequels are all weak compared to his original masterpiece. Not true for all of them, but, I mean... Freddy's Dead exists.
Yeah. Do you know what's absolutely insane?
What?
To me, in my head, to sort of get my head around, that there was only 10 years between the first Nightmare on Elm Street and New Nightmare.
Yeah.
There's only 10 years, but it's almost been 30 years since New Nightmare. and therefore 40 years since Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Now, I don't remember either of the films coming out and being released. I don't. But going through this journey throughout October together, I think it's really brought us closer together as a couple. But I also think we
go through this journey at least once a year.
I know. That was the joke. But I also feel like time doesn't mean what I thought it meant before. I just feel like we've been on this giant journey from the first film to the final one. But really, it's only been 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
True.
Because we sit here and we've been a couple for the best part of 7 years. So we're quite the way through a Nightmare on Elm Street's franchise. Because you don't get another film until Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
And then you don't get another film after that until the remake.
Yeah.
And then you don't get anything.
Yeah. Which is...
apart from when he guest starred in the Goldbergs.
Yeah, this is an actual shame. And if any film producers are listening to this, come on, make something new, for fuck's sake. I don't care if it's good or bad. Just get a new Nightmare on Elm Street out there. Like, requel it. Who cares? Just get a new film out.
I suppose it's less risky to just get money from all the merchandise.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming New Line Cinema still get a fair bit from the merchandising rights for Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And is it the first film that they used for the merchandise as well?
I think it is.
Not randomly Halloween 2.
I think every now and then there's Dream Warriors as well. I think
it
is definitely what you were saying about time and everything. I think it's very telling that there was only 10 years between this and the original, and yet they were still able to make something like this, where it was a global phenomenon. Like, everyone knew who Freddy was, and they were able to go down this route with the story because it made sense at that point in time.
Yeah.
It was never originally going to be that way, though. This is the point, according to Wes Craven's biography, where New Line would have gone with a Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
Because obviously you just had Jason Goes to Hell with the Freddy ending, and Jason is then in the hands of New Line, so yeah. But they didn't. They waited till 2003 when Kelly Rowland was available. This is made on a budget of $8 million, and it only made $19.7 million at the box office, which, although it's more than what it was made for, that's not great.
I don't think audiences were ready for this film.
They have 2 more years to go.
Yeah, because it's... Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into all the meta and the more kind of adult-orientated themes of the film, which I thought, may have alienated some fans of the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
They're all teen films up until this point.
Teen films. This is essentially a film about a mother and son and their relationship. And I don't think the diehard Nightmare on Elm Street fans were too interested in that. They wanted to see teens get cut up by a wisecracking man in a Christmas sweater.
Yeah. And to be honest,
I didn't go full on Kelly Rowland quote there.
To be honest, what we got here, because it's so ahead of its time, I would say is a good example of elevated horror.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually completely agree with you there. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a shock, like you never agree.
But then would you say that Scream would be considered elevated horror?
Absolutely.
Or do you think Scream is too light-hearted for that?
No, I don't know. Actually, yeah, maybe it is.
I don't see New Nightmare as a comedy. No, even though there are scenes.
New Nightmare has themes. It has layers. Scream is a meta take on the horror genre.
Yes.
So, I wouldn't say Scream, but I would say this is.
Yeah. How we see elevated horror now.
Yeah.
The very modern term elevated horror, rather than, because I would describe The Exorcist as elevated horror because it's horror on a new level, but I wouldn't describe it in the way that we're describing it now. Well, actually, no.
I think I would.
Yeah, actually, I may have talked myself into that.
Yeah.
Actually, completely ignore what I just said. I literally just talked myself into that.
Well,
Yeah.
shall we?
Good for The Exorcist.
Shall we talk about who's in this?
Yes, in a section we like to call "Hey, I Know You," and what are you doing at this random guy's funeral?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because we have a cast playing themselves mostly.
We do, yes.
And for the final time this month, Heather Langenkamp. I've only mentioned her once before, but just in case, you still got that fresh in your mind. Heather Langenkamp as herself and as Nancy Thompson. She is the star of A Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3. Just the 10 of us, The Midnight Club, The Outsiders, Tonya and Nancy, The Inside Story,
Yes,
Portal, Glitch, and more. And following her initial success in both the original Nightmare on Elm Street and Dream Warriors, Langenkamp took on the role of Mary Lubbock in the ABC sitcom Just the 10 of Us. However, she was later stalked by an obsessive fan who was unhappy the series was cancelled, leading to her temporarily moving to England. In the film, her character is also stalked through harassing phone calls, and Wes Craven asked if he could use it in the film, and she was happy to go ahead with it.
Yeah, and Wes Craven thought there was quite a bit of irony in the idea that many have taken issue with horror films and thought that horror films would bring out the worst in people. Yet it was the cancellation of a light-hearted sitcom about a large family that made this person so angry that he stalked the star, which is very almost comical in the idea of how we are perceived or how people perceive horror films.
Yeah, I think it adds to how creepy this film is as well, that we know that this was something that happened in real life to Heather Langenkamp. So good for her for being willing to go ahead with having it on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a cast member who has said that this is his favourite film of the franchise, along with Freddy's makeup being his favourite look. A man who you've definitely heard a lot of Hey I Know Yous for this month if you've been listening to all the episodes. Yes. It's Robert Englund as himself and the entity / Freddy Krueger. So just in case you haven't listened to the other ones, he was in the rest of the franchise: Stranger Things, The Mangler, Urban Legends, Zombie Strippers, Hatchet, V, and more. In this film, he's depicted a lot closer to what Wes Craven had originally intended for the character. Much more menacing, much less comical, with an updated attire and appearance. However, in 2015, before his death, he would admit he regretted changing his appearance and said, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." Which is why he kept Ghostface's mask in the Scream films the same all the time. In the film, Englund also plays himself as both an actor and painter, as I've said, and according to the Never Sleep Again documentary, a scripted but ultimately unfilmed sequence would have seen an Englund transform... We've seen the Englund, Robert Englund, transformed into a fly and trapped in the web of a giant Freddy spider in an homage to the Fly for Freddy's Nightmare. But it wasn't shot due to time and budgetary constraints, which is a shame because I'd love to have seen that.
I would have loved to have seen that. What do you think of Freddy's look in this film?
Might be my favourite.
I like it. I think it looks great. I do understand where Wes Craven maybe came from in the idea that it's so different to the rest.
Yeah.
Just it looks a lot glossier, I feel.
It does. It looks a lot more demonic.
Yeah.
And I think that, lends into the fantasy side of things where, you're going to have him coming into the real world. So to have him look more over the top evil, it's more effective.
And to have his hand have claws.
Yeah.
Rather than it be a glove.
Which isn't new. I mean, that is what happened in Freddy's Revenge. But of course, in this, he's got like a new design over his hand as well.
Yeah.
I think it looks fantastic.
I think it was almost like a Cenobite.
It was
kind of.
And you compare this to how he looked in Freddy's Dead. Gigantic improvement.
Yeah. And what do you think about the large coat and hat?
The large coat and hat, I like. The leather trousers, those ugly leather pants. Not too sure about them.
I did. Forgive me, I don't remember I'm not sure if I follow them on Letterboxd, but I did see a review that suggested Freddy looked like a villain from Dick Tracy.
I mean,
which I'm living for.
He does.
I'm not sure if it was a critique or not.
Yeah.
But I'm living for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I agree.
The leather pants are a choice, though. I mean, but again, ahead of its time. This is before Blade and before The Matrix, so having him go around in leather
before that episode of Friends, where Ross wears leather trousers.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously inspired by this. Miko Hughes plays Dylan Porter. He was in Kindergarten Cop, childhood favourite of mine. Pet Sematary, childhood favourite of Chris's. Mercury...
Wasn't you weirdo?
Mercury Rising, Spawn, Apollo 13, The Untold Story, not that Untold Story. Remains, Surf School, Clock Stoppers, Magic Rock, Baby Geniuses, and more. So many people on this podcast that we've spoke about have been in Baby Geniuses.
I feel we have to watch Baby Geniuses at some point.
Oh, I mean, I kind of want to do it for the podcast, so then we've watched it, we've done it in one go, and I don't just watch it again.
Yeah,
I feel like it's going to be awful.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we should charge for that episode.
Yeah,
for
start a Patreon just
insurance
for
purposes.
Baby Geniuses series.
I think there's a few of those, isn't there?
Miko Hughes was a Freddy fan way before filming. He would watch them put the makeup on Robert Englund every day. And Wes Craven tried to get a real reaction from him to actually cry. To do this, his mother would leave the set and his father would whisper in his ear, "Your mother's dead." And if he acted well for this, then his reward would be a Happy Meal. And I think that's a fucking bargain. Cry for a Happy Meal? Yes, please.
Your mother's dead? I'm sure Stanley Kubrick would have been a fan of that.
Yeah. It's Miko Hughes, I think he does a good job in this, especially it's like fucking war zone outside. Everyone is obsessed with fireworks in our area. Please ignore the loud bangs in the background. Jesus Christ. This is raw. This isn't being edited out. This is real. This is real life. Which is what I'm about to talk about, funny enough. Because obviously everyone else in this film, apart from his dad, are playing themselves and his babysitter. A lot of people in this film are playing themselves. So obviously, I think it's more of a task for the actors playing characters to put in a good performance. And I think everyone does a good job. And I think Miko Hughes being a child actors could be very fucking hit or miss. But he puts in a good performance. And I'm not going to lie, when I first watched this, I got really emotional during one scene because of him. The rocket in the playground scene. Like, oh my god! Like this is acting. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, I think he does a decent job. But
he's fucking creepy as hell in Pet Sematary as well.
For me personally, there are moments that are a little cheesy. I'm not gonna lie, but I think he does do a good job. Of acting for a child actor. I'm not gonna give him a Razzie Award or anything.
John Saxon is back. Again, another Hey, I Know You from earlier this month. He plays himself and he plays Donald Thompson, of course, the star of Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2, Enter the Dragon, Black Christmas, Nightmare Beach, My Mum's a Werewolf, Tenebrae, Howlmaster, From Dusk Till Dawn, and many more iconic genre films.
It's just maybe the coolest.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And it's just so nice.
Just the coolest.
It's just so nice in this. It's just such a likable guy. And even in like the interviews for this as well, like where he's really horrified that someone's dad is killed. It's like, oh my god, so wholesome, John Saxon. He
does come across as just a really genuinely nice dude.
Yeah,
and he's worked with some incredible people,
mm-hmm.
and he's been in some fantastic films.
Yeah,
what a genre icon.
Yeah,
John Saxon, definitely.
Someone I really enjoyed in this was Tracy Middendorf, who plays Julie. She's also professional 90s. Wow. Catherine Newton is a professional Tracy Middendorf lookalike, should we say.
She is.
They both look a lot.
They really do in this film. Yeah, absolutely.
She was in Mission Impossible 3, Scream the TV series, Boy Wonder, For Love of the Game, Murder, She Wrote, of course, Days of Our Lives, of course. Do you know, we say Murder, She Wrote appears a lot on Hey, I Know You. Days of Our Lives appears a lot on Hey I Know You. The Perfect Husband, the Lacey Peterson story, and more. She was actually created in part to act as a red herring regarding Heather Stalker. So, film editor Patrick Lucier revealed in the same documentary that she was originally scripted to be working as an avatar for Freddy, but this was ultimately changed to her being killed by him instead. And Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie, and Drew Barrymore were all considered for this role. The actress turned it down due to prior commitments in other projects, and as we know, Ryder was going to be Kristen in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 as well. So when you make a new one, get her in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I'm sure her and Robert Englund are good friends
Exactly.
now.
Could you imagine Drew Barrymore in this role as Julie? That would have been good casting.
It would have been great casting, but she would have been less likely, I feel, to get Scream 2 years later.
That's true.
So
yeah, but
of the two,
yeah, Tracy Mindoff does such a good job.
She does.
And forgive me, I said 3 people in the cast play characters. Well, no, we also have Fran Bennett as Dr. Christine Hefner,
yes.
star of 8mm, Quantum Leap, In the Heat of the Night, Jezebel, The Next Best Thing, Murder, She Wrote,
yes,
Days of Our Lives,
there we go,
The Morning After, and more. Christine Hefner, a character named after the former MPAA ratings chief Richard Hefner, who clashed with Wes Craven over the censorship of his films many times. And, you know, the MPAA are very unlikable with things we've done research on around this time and in the 80s. And I tell you what, Fran Bennett does a good job of embodying that in this role.
Yes.
She is perfect in this role.
The role's a difficult one because on one hand you kind of agree with what she's saying, but on the other she's,
because you know what's going on in the film, and you know she's like, you know, slowing down time where they could be solving this thing, and you know she's being a bitch to Heather Langenkamp. It's like, oh, she is unlikable, but it's kind of one of those unlikable roles where you just want to see more of her. Yeah,
it's true, but she does blame the horror movies.
Yeah.
For what's going on, so that's in keeping with her namesake.
Yeah.
But also, she is a little concerned about, and we'll get to it, but she's a little concerned about stuff that she probably has every right to be concerned about. Let's be honest. She's a bit like the Priscilla Pointer character, the Doctor in Dream Warriors, where you're like, oh, just shut up and leave him alone and crack on with it. But it also is like, actually, if I was a doctor in this situation, I would be a bit like, okay, it's not quite adding up here.
David Newsom plays Chase Porter. Chase Porter being the role based on Heather Langenkamp's real-life husband, David Leroy Anderson, who does work on special effects in films. He was originally offered the role, but he declined to because it'd be too close to the bone. And Newsom recalled in 2010 how he looked nothing like a typical special effects artist, who tended to, you know, have longer hair and look less like a stereotypical nerd.
Kind of look more like an extra in This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
David Newsom, star of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Quantum Leap, The Days, Murder, She Wrote,
yes,
Coda, A One-Time Thing, Boys, Where's Marlowe, Black Circle Boys, and more.
Do you know what I really want to do?
What?
Just the two of us. Is sit down and watch Murder, She Wrote from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And make a list of all the people we recognise, where we recognise them.
Yeah.
Maybe we can, if we ever do a Patreon, maybe we should do just going through the Murder, She Wrote episodes.
And just
like,
well,
hey, I know you.
We could just do a Murder, She Wrote on Elm Street and just do the ones starring.
We could.
Nightmare on Elm Street cast.
But then I feel like so many of the podcast films star so many people that are in Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
It's actually incredible.
Wes Craven appears as himself. He is cameoed in Scream 1, 2, and 3. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Stark Raven Mad, Diary of the Dead, Red Eye, Boston Legal, Body Bags, The Fear, Shocker, and more. And he initially scripts himself as a man driven insane by nightmares who had cut off his own eyelids to stay awake and was being driven around by Michael Berryman's character from The Hills of Eyes. Craven decided to opt for a more comforting setting of being in an opulent house in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah. You do get a sense of these homes from this film.
Yeah.
And Wes Craven definitely has the biggest swimming pool.
He does.
Much like Heather Langenkamp, she's got a swimming pool, it's a good one.
Yeah.
She's got a really nice house. But Wes Craven's got a fucking massive swimming pool. And this is before Scream.
Yeah. Yeah. And finally, he'd loved that he was included in this section. It is Mr. Robert Shea himself as himself. The groundbreaking star of cameos in A Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, 4, and Freddy's Dead, and Freddy vs. Jason, and Freddy's Nightmares, Quiet Call, The Hidden, Loaded Weapon 1, Man's Best Friend, Festival in Cannes, and Cellular. I've seen Cellular many times, and I cannot tell you who he plays.
No.
But again, you know, cameos in everything, and yeah.
We don't get to see his house. We get to see his office, very nice office.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if we did get to see his home, he would have the biggest swimming pool of all.
He would. He's putting his absolute best into his performance here.
Yes.
Really thinks he's going for it. Do you have any more you'd like to mention?
Not well. I suppose.
I mean, there's a lot more. We could be.
She returns as nurse with pills.
We could be here all day. There's a lot of.
Yeah, Sarah Risher plays herself. But yeah, we'll get to that. We will get to that. But no, that's You've touched on. Oh no, I was going to say the most interesting ones, but it feels a little rude. But touch on the bigger names.
Tuesday Night's also there.
Yes.
Well, with that being said, let's get to our final feature presentation of 5 Weeks of Freddy's.
How would you like to join us in the definitive nightmare?
I thought you killed Freddy off.
They told you he was dead.
And since you've been thinking of making it, has anything funny happened?
For 10 years, he's been held captive as Freddy in the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
And now he's got the last laugh.
What is he doing?
He's decided to cross over out of films into our reality.
Wes Craven's new nightmare.
Miss me?
We open the film with a man building a metal claw glove. We assume it's Freddy. The man then cuts his hand off with a meat cleaver, and we cut to Heather Langenkamp in her iconic Nancy Thompson PJs covering her son Dylan's eyes. She lives in Los Angeles now, in California, with her husband Chase and their young son Dylan, and she's recognised for her role as Nancy Thompson from the Nightmare on Elm Street film series before focusing her career on television.
Yeah, so we open exactly the same as the original film.
Yeah.
And with the glove being made and the soundtrack's exactly the same, but obviously looks a little more dated. And then we find that we're on a film set, which I really like.
Yeah, and it's funny because obviously, you know, if you're treating a scene as a remake of that scene from the original, Wes Craven puts a little in-joke in there, how at this point, if they remade it, it would have to be Rachel Stevens more, and he would have to chop his hand off.
He would, yeah.
So, and that's what I assume that is anyway, and I think it's very funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. And then when it comes to Heather Langenkamp, it's like, oh my god, okay, this is where we're at now. This is where we're going with this.
And this is what I like. I like that the main... There's no... I wouldn't call it a parody, but the main references of the film are the original. Yeah. So the original and Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. There were other moments that sort of reference the sequels, but the main aspect of this, for the meta-ness, if that's even a word, the meta is the original film, which gives this film a lot more clarity. Yeah. I think if it was trying to hit too many of the notes from the series, it would have not worked. Yeah. So we don't, this is the original, the opening to the original film, and it continues that. Yeah.
Heather's freaked out by the new animatronic Freddy claws on the set for an upcoming Nightmare film, but she's reminded by Chase that it puts bread on their table.
Excuse me, she puts some bread on the table herself.
I know
Thank
she
you
does,
very
yeah.
much,
Yeah.
Chase.
Also, she turned up to this film, and much like Dream Warriors, yet again, she decided to just serve cunt in every single fucking scene.
I can say Heather Langenkamp, beautiful woman, always has been, but she looks fantastic in this
She does.
film.
And
Absolutely stunning.
this is a career best performance as well, because
Yeah.
obviously, you know, the first film, she's camping it. You know, I mean, it's as simple as that. It's a great camp performance.
How can you say I gave a camp performance?
Exactly. And, you know, Dream Warriors, she's really good in that. But then in this, she is acting. And there's one scene coming up later on where I'm kind of like, if there was justice in this world, she would have seen some attention at award season.
Was she nominated at the Saturns?
I'm not sure.
I feel she probably
hope she was.
I would hope so.
Because truly, and you know, if you've never seen this film and you've only seen the first film, you're thinking, oh, Heather Langenkamp, award winner. Yet in this film, absolutely, she would absolutely.
There's
deserve
an
to be
extra
nominated.
layer to her
Yeah.
character. Number one, she's playing herself. But number two, she's playing a mother.
Yeah.
And I think it gives her performance more of a focus.
Mhm.
And I think that the character of Heather, compared to Nancy, it asks for more acting.
Yeah.
To be fair, it needs more, and she gives more. I genuinely think she's really, really good.
Yeah.
In this. What I thought was a little inappropriate was when Chase suggests to Dylan that he has special effects that will scare the pajamas off of Heather. Well, you're in public. Maybe let's not do that.
Well, I can tell you for awards,
Yes.
the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films USA,
Yes.
nominated this for Best Horror Film,
Nice.
Saturn Award, Best
Yeah.
Horror Film, Best Performance by a Young Actor, Miko Hughes,
Mm-hmm.
and Best Music, J. Peter Robinson.
Oh.
But the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards
Oh.
nominated Heather Langenkamp, Best Actress, Wes Craven, Best Screenplay, New Nightmare, Best Wide Release Film, and Best Supporting Actor, Miko Hughes, and it won all four.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's a lie. That's a lie. It won two of them.
Oh.
I misread
Why
that.
are you lying to me?
Miko Hughes and the Best Wide Release Film were just nominations, but it won Best Screenplay and Heather Langenkamp won Best Actress.
Fantastic. Now, there's an awards coming up soon that she may fare quite well in.
Oh, well, yeah.
So,
Obviously.
and they're the ones that count.
Yeah, yeah. The claws come to life and brutally kill crew members Chuck and Terry.
Not Chuck and Terry.
Yeah, one of them has his throat clawed out and the other has his chest clawed out. And Dylan heads over to the bed on set and disappears whilst the claws attack Chase, and Heather wakes up to an earthquake. All of the earthquake sequences in this film were actually filmed 1 month prior to the actual Los Angeles earthquake of '94. The real quake struck only 2 weeks before the end of filming. Subsequently, a unit was sent out to film drive-by footage of actual quake-damaged areas of the city before the end of filming. The cast and crew believed that the earthquake scenes that were filmed before the real quake struck were a bit overdone, but when viewed after the real earthquake hit, they were actually frightened by the realism of it.
In the Never Sleeps Again documentary, Wes Craven seemed very, very pleased with being able to get this footage.
He did. He
I hope
did.
no one died. Like, people's livelihoods were ruined
Yeah.
in this. I don't know why you're so gleeful at being able to get this footage. I do understand it was probably a really good get, and when we see that footage, it works. It looks great, but it's a bit like, oh, okay, at what price?
Yeah. But I don't think Wes Craven caused the earthquake.
No, of course not. I like how with the earthquakes, it's a reference in part to the original.
Yeah.
So do you remember when Tina says about the nightmares? She said,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
we're
yeah.
getting an earthquake.
Yeah.
You know, people say things go really weird before we get one. So I'm assuming that's the reference.
Yeah.
Or
No, I think so.
or maybe it's just a thing.
Oh no, there are a lot of small details in
Yeah.
this that connect to the first film.
Mm-hmm.
Heather and Dylan notice a cut on Chase's finger, exactly like the one he had received in Heather's dream, but she quickly dismisses the notion that it was caused by the claws. Dylan makes a scary face in his breakfast, and Heather is fucking fuming. She's like, Dylan, this is breakfast, not arts and crafts, you little shit.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this family dynamic.
No.
I'm not a fan. Heather is the mean one.
Yeah.
Chase is the nice one. Chase can go swanning off to work, but Heather is guilted for being a mother that's still working.
Mm-hmm.
Chase is the one saying that he's the one that puts bread on the table. Yeah, Heather's out there working.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, one thing Heather's doing
Mm.
is serving a cunty business outfit in this next scene. Oh my god. This is the biggest business slay I've seen.
It is.
Chase is checking with her if she's all right, and at this point you can't focus because you're just watching that outfit, just fucking scene stealing outfit there. If she's checking if she's had any more calls from an obsessed fan who quotes Freddy Krueger's nursery rhymes in an eerie Freddy-like voice, and if she's had any more of her nightmares. She tells him about her dream. He thinks she was half awake and saw his fingers get cut when a picture frame fell. But when he leaves for work, another earthquake appears to start, and big claw marks appear on the wall. Something else taken from Repulsion.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not... I like this business suit.
Like?
I like it. I like it. It's very... Are
you even gay?
Like Psychologist on the Ricky Lake show. Like,
exactly.
And here's our
but it's Heather Langenkamp wearing it.
I really like the colour. No, I do. I love it. I do love it. Is this the plum coloured one?
Yeah.
Is it like... Yeah. Yeah, no, I am a fan. I suppose it's this dynamic. I can't get over it. Heather, she's just working hard and she's getting no respect at home.
Well, she's done a good job of raising Dylan because she goes downstairs and finds out he has great taste in films when he's watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street on TV.
Yes.
But he's watching it in a trance-like state, which honestly, same. That's me when I first watched it.
Is it on during the day? There's no sort of explanation as to...
She's a big star. She's got a VHS player.
I was going to say... She's got a laser disc.
But it's a supernatural thing. Spoiler alert, later on we find out Telly's not even plugged in.
No, of course.
So...
But why is she not? Why is she saying, "Why are you watching this?" Why is she not saying, "Why is this on daytime TV?"
When she turns the TV off, Dylan starts screaming again, same as me when I was younger, until Heather receives a call from the obsessed fan. After the call, the house starts to shake again. When Dylan's babysitter Julie arrives and Heather mentions the earthquake, Julie's like, no, there was no earthquake, but a big truck went by. How big was that truck?
Well, we've established over the many podcast episodes that American houses aren't as sturdy as UK houses. So maybe they do shake when a big truck goes past.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, we had fireworks not too long ago. And
we did.
Our walls were shaking.
The phone rings again, and Heather answers, and she's like, "Leave us alone, you son of a bitch!" But it's her limo driver. Dylan is being all moody because Heather has to go to work, but seemingly wasn't bothered about his dad going to work.
Absolutely. He was like, "Bye, Dad."
Yeah.
For 2 days.
Yeah.
Like he's sleeping over.
Also, I'm living for the fact that Heather has her own limo.
Yeah. I'm assuming this is what New Line Cinema has put on for her.
Yeah.
When she goes, because she's on her way to do an interview, isn't she?
She is.
With Sam Rubin.
Yes, and her driver is geeking out.
He's a big fan. He's a big fan.
He says when they cut the guy's girlfriend open and drags her body across the ceiling, when all that blood comes out of your boyfriend's bed, I thought I'd shit.
It's all too much for her though. And she rolls the window up.
Yeah, he proceeds to tell her how terrible the sequels were and how they shouldn't have killed off Freddy. But yeah, he thought he was going to shit.
Have you? Did you not do that first time you watched?
I
Nightmare on
can't
Elm
say I
Street?
did. Can't say I did. Heather does her 10th anniversary TV chat show interview with Sam Rubin, where he asks her if she'd let her son watch the Elm Street films.
Yes.
And if she'd trust Robert Englund alone with him.
This is very strange.
Very weird question.
Because her
to ask.
response, because she giggles a little bit, Robert, I don't know. And it's like, oh.
I mean, I guess she doesn't know. I guess she's never thought of that. I mean, sure, she was caught off guard. Like, why the fuck would he ask
If
that?
someone's been a good friend for 10 years, it's been like, oh, I don't know. Would I trust them alone with my child? Like, why are you friends with them if you don't 100% know that you would trust them alone with your child?
Well, he then brings Robert out in full Freddy costume, who acts like an absolute fucking rock star in front of the audience, who are all chanting his name. And this was inspired by a real encounter. Wes Craven said Robert Englund and him did an appearance together on public television in San Francisco area. It was about whether this kind of movie was bad for children or not. There were parents in the audience and then kids, and all the kids leapt to their feet and started chanting Freddy's name. And he remembers looking at the show host and the parents, and they all looked horrified. Yeah, this scene is just iconic. And it's so fucking good, the way it's filmed as well, in slow motion. And, you know, it obviously shows that Heather's kind of a little afraid of him because of the nightmare she'd been having. Yeah, it's just great and real great imagery.
Yeah, and I think in many ways it kind of epitomizes what people critiqued from the series of films, the night and where it ended up.
Yeah.
A Nightmare on Elm Street as a franchise. The idea is that somebody who in the original film was a child molester and murderer
Yeah.
would suddenly become someone kids dressed up as
Yeah.
and cheered
Yeah.
and celebrated when he killed people. To go from that within a 10-year period, well, less than, because Freddy's dead, in what, 6-7 year period, I think that's what Wes Craven's critiquing there,
Yeah.
or commenting on.
Yeah.
And it's
definitely.
not just Freddy Krueger. It's Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
It's Pinhead. It's all of those that become almost like cartoon characters.
Yes.
In a way,
Mm-hmm.
and people start cheering these murderers,
Yeah.
these molesters. And it's like, well, what does that say about American society?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then some more interesting commentary is the next scene where Heather waits around whilst Freddy's being bugged by fans for his autographs. And it's very much a case of, you know, Freddy's the one getting bombarded with fans, and no one really was interested in Heather Langenkamp.
No.
Shocking.
And Nancy, and I think, again, this is on a similar sort of subject, what I just said. This is critiquing the fans' response to stronger female characters.
Yeah.
These final girls that don't last, that no one ever really remembers. To a certain... Heather Langenkamp, of course, we remember.
Yeah.
But she's never sort of been the one at the forefront of the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Yeah.
Even though she was a heroine.
Yeah.
She was the one that we were behind. She was our final girl. And in so many of these films, and I think A Nightmare on Elm Street is probably better than a lot of the other franchises in terms of consistency with final girls. It's still not great. But you think something like Friday the 13th, that series, there's a new final girl in each one.
Yeah.
You know, and no one ever remembers them. They're interchangeable, but Jason Voorhees is celebrated and high-fived in the street and like, yeah, love that time that you killed that naked chick. Can't remember her name. You know?
Yeah, no, definitely. She has a conversation with Robert, and he's like, oh, they'd love to see us together again. And she's like, what, in a rom-com? And he says, just because it's a love story doesn't mean it can't have a decapitation or two. And apparently, his Phantom of the Opera, a love story, contains a decapitation or two.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to forget that.
You haven't watched it.
That one.
You haven't watched it.
Oh, do you know what? We've watched so many versions of Phantom of the Bloody Opera recently. Some of them have been fantastic. I'm not gonna lie.
Absolute full-time queen and franchise producer Sarah Risher calls Heather and asks her to stop by New Line Cinema offices to discuss a project that Bob has for her.
I feel like I've seen Sarah Risher so many times because we watched so many documentaries on A Nightmare on Elm Street and New Line Cinema, and she always pops up during those. And I don't know her personally, but she seems like a very nice lady. Her acting is
cunty.
It is, but also it's camp. It's quite camp.
It's
It
so
is camp.
She's
It's not bad though, but it is campy.
Heaven's like, oh, I hope cunty Sarah Risher's not waiting for me when I get there. And she is. She's waiting for her, and she greets her, and she's absolutely slaying the game. Probably not a good performance, but slaying. Absolutely slaying. And her outfit is top notch.
She's 1994 business.
Yeah. The business outfits in this film are unbelievable.
Very professional.
Bob Shay gets his big moment. He does his absolute best to put on a performance here. He can't change being dead behind the eyes, though. Something he cannot change. He pitches the idea to reprise her role as Nancy in a new Nightmare film, which, unbeknownst to her, Chase has been working on, which is something that he tells her about when she refuses to take the role. And she's a little horrified by this.
Mm-hmm.
He describes it as the definitive nightmare and tells her it's come about because Wes Craven wants to make it because he's been having nightmares again.
Yeah, Bob Shay's office is adorned with Freddy Krueger merchandise, which I love.
Yeah.
The thing is, I understand part of the critique of the film is the toys and the comedy and the kids loving Freddy.
Yeah, there's an emphasis on Freddy's dead in this office.
Yeah, trust and believe, though, I would love all of that merchandise. And if I had watched these films when I was younger, I'm pretty sure I would have, bought all of the... And when I say younger, I mean a lot younger. 10, around that age. I would have bought all of them. But yeah, like Gary said, Heather concludes that for Wes Craven to have another script, he must be having nightmares again. Which is really interesting.
Yeah, I love that this is a film directed by Wes Craven, so therefore he set up that office for Bob Shay, filled with all the gimmicky Freddy stuff. That's hilarious.
But I feel like that's a joke against Bob Shay that Bob Shay wouldn't really understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bob Shay didn't get it at all, but for anyone who does get it, it's really funny.
But let's be honest, all that merchandise behind him is why he's got such a really big, nice, flashy office. And
true.
And he doesn't have to answer his own phone.
Yeah. And it's why Robert Englund has his nice swimming pool at this point. But before this point, he actually didn't get hardly anything from the merchandise.
Did Robert Englund have a pool?
Not Robert Englund, Wes Craven.
Wes Craven.
And Bob Shay... They'd had a falling out, and the way they made up was Bob Shay finally said to him, yeah, you know what, you do actually deserve half of the merchandise and whatnot, and sent him a check for it. But it's like, for that long, it's like, oh my god, the guy who created the franchise, yeah, I kind of think he deserves a share in it.
But film, it's called show business for a reason. It is business at the end of the day, and seemingly Wes Craven did not think that there would be any sequels whatsoever to A Nightmare on Elm Street. No. So he gave up his rights, which is his decision to make, which was his right to do, and seemingly it was quite the mistake. Financially, quite a mistake. So, probably, we tend to make fun of Bob Shay a little bit on the podcast. I mean, I've never met the man. I'm sure he's perfectly nice. I don't know.
Wow.
Well, you hear stories. But we tend to make fun of Bob Shay, but this is something he didn't have to do, and he did.
Yeah.
But also he probably thought, well, get Wes Craven on board and we could make quite a bit of money from a new
get on his
Nightmare on
good
Elm Street.
side.
Just don't release it at the same time as Pulp Fiction. Oh,
yeah.
Oh dear.
Heather asks how long Wes has been working on the script, and whether anything strange has happened, including phone calls and nightmares. And as she says it, the phone rings.
I really want my ringtone to be that Scream, New Nightmare, 90s telephone ringtone. You know which one I'm everyone knows which one I'm talking about.
I do. And yeah, it's kind of funny. The scene, like, it's really dramatic, and it just ends where Bob says, "Oh my god, someone answer that phone for me." Heather returns home and sees Dylan having a severely traumatizing episode where he screams at her.
Yeah, very, very loud. Because she is way far from the house.
Yeah.
When she can hear him screaming.
Yeah.
Again, it's these thin walls in these American homes.
You say about the trouble and family dynamic in this. Do you think there's a theme from the mother and son relationship in this film?
I think so. I do think so. Absent parent, maybe. Childhood trauma, all that. Yeah, I think so, definitely.
Yeah. And, you know, that kind of plays into the franchise's bigger theme as a whole with the absent parent thing. You know,
of course,
this is something Heather Langenkamp has created.
Yeah.
And her kid is paying the price for it. The exact same theme as all the other Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you look at it like that, it's well on theme for the whole of the franchise, definitely. And if it gets Dylan talking like Donald Duck as well, it's a real issue.
Which it does.
It does.
When he comes around, he tells her that Rex, his stuffed dinosaur toy, saved him. He shows her Rex, and Rex has claw marks over him. This is a bit of memorabilia I'd love to have in this film.
Oh yeah, someone on Etsy or somewhere has recreated it.
Yeah, Miko Hughes still owns it. The frequent calls and Dylan's strange behaviour causes Heather to call Chase, and he agrees to rush home from his workplace at Palm Springs as the same time that Chuck and Terry from the opening dream didn't report for work.
Oh, not Chuck and Terry.
Heather reads Hansel and Gretel to Dylan in bed. She doesn't want to finish the story because it's so violent, so Dylan finishes it for her and tells her she needs to finish the story tonight because it's important.
Yeah, Heather Langenkamp, was she not familiar with the story before? It's the first time she's read Hansel and Gretel.
Absent parent.
Did she know? What, do you think she had an absent parent that never... I mean, my parents never read fairy tales to me.
I mean, she doesn't know about reading it to him because she doesn't have to do it.
Oh, do you think Chase is the one? Oh, okay. Maybe.
She tells him that to finish the story, they followed a trail of breadcrumbs home. Something that may come back later on.
Yeah, I like how Wes Craven's taken a fairy tale and used that. Because this is a film really from the eyes of Heather, but also Dylan too.
Yeah.
That's the kid's name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's a film from the child's eyes too. We're following their story together. So to have a fairy tale narrative plays into that.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's very much, is Freddy using that sort of something that a child can relate to in order to lure him in?
Yeah, yeah.
Dylan has Rex under his sheets and tells Heather that he keeps him there to protect him from the man with the claws. And he tells Heather that she should have a guard too. But the person who really needs a guard is Chase, because he's driving home and singing Losing My Religion by R.E.M. to keep himself awake. But Freddy's claws come up from beneath his seat and touches his balls.
Yeah, it gives the crotch area a little tickle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which makes Chase scratch that area.
Yes.
Not very convincingly.
No.
It's more like a rub rather than a scratch.
And then Freddy just reaches up and starts wanking him off.
He gives a 5-finger knuckle shuffle.
That's Wes
Craven's knife knuckle shuffle, should I say?
That's Wes Craven's nude nightmare.
Oh, excuse me.
The porn parody.
Yes.
Freddy's claw bursts through the seat and claws open Chase's chest, causing him to crash and die. Heather wakes up and the police knock at the door to tell her that Chase fell asleep at the wheel and died. This came about due to concerns with the screenplay that Freddy wasn't killing enough people.
It's true. I mean, you need that in a horror. You need to know that there is a risk there.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose killing off the husband makes sense.
In a callback to part 5, maybe?
I don't know. Yeah, it is in my head. Sometimes I get these mixed up. But then realise that Wes Craven's New Nightmare would absolutely not have him turn into like a motorbike. Dude. Like, how do you explain a motorbike dude?
Heather immediately demands to see his body, so she goes straight to the morgue. Our queen does not waste time. And Kenny from Scream...
I want to see his cock one last time.
Kenny from Scream is waiting there for her.
Yes.
And shows her Chase's body, and she notices that he has 4 big claw marks on his chest.
What could it be?
His funeral takes place with various other cast and crew members from the Elm Street
everyone
franchise.
turns up to Chase's funeral.
Yeah. And there's an earthquake whilst they're all there. The coffin falls into the ground and opens up. Dylan is dragged into it by Freddy. Heather goes after him. Chase's corpse grabs her and says, "Stay with me, Heather." And her longtime friend and former co-star, John Saxon, wakes her up.
Yeah. I absolutely love this scene. I think the visuals are so creepy. Yeah. I like them sort of fighting over Dylan right next to Chase's corpse. Mm-hmm. It's so dark when you think about it. And having the incredibly long, the inside, I don't know how to describe it, it's sort of like the satin interior of the casket. Yeah. But to have that almost like a liminal space underneath the ground, I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah. And maybe a callback to part 4, the funeral scene, where
I suppose
the brother comes back.
Every good Nightmare on Elm Street film has a funeral
That's
scene.
That's true.
And I'm just surprised that Heather wasn't wearing bright blue to this one.
No, but she's still serving.
She is.
Do you have any of the names there of who else was at the funeral?
So I know that Wes Craven wanted Johnny Depp, but was too scared to ask him because he was too famous. Is it? Oh, who did Tina's boyfriend in the original? What was his name? Rod, of course no. The actor who played Rod was there. He got a little closer.
Yeah. Tuesday night
was there. Sarah Risher was there. Bob Shea was there.
Of course.
Wes Craven was there. Julie was on the front row.
Yes.
Yeah. Next.
Also, her outfit was a bit of a sleigh as well for the funeral.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good, maybe funerals are the best time to slay.
Maybe. John Saxon tells Heather that there was an earthquake that caused her to fall over and bump her head. That night, Heather is woken up by Dylan watching A Nightmare on Elm Street again. Chris Barker when he first watched it.
I did watch it twice in a row. Well, technically, I slept in between, but yeah, I did watch it twice in a row.
He slept in between and lost a parent in between, so...
Well, he's sleeping still. He's sleepwalking. So...
Yeah, he's sleepwalking this time. She wakes him up. He starts screaming before giving us a cover version of the first line of the Jump Rope Girls hit song.
Oh, finally making a return to the series.
Well, I suppose it did on the telephone earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But Dylan gives a better performance.
Yeah. This is Dylan's version.
He tells her he heard it in his bed. His nose starts bleeding, and it's revealed the TV wasn't plugged in.
Oh my god, then how did it switch on?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And it's these little reveals that build up as the film goes on. Because, if you watch this film, know nothing about it, you'd be kind of like, is this Heather making it up in her mind? Is she going crazy from the pressure of working on these films? I fully believe that's the direction that we were going down. But then when this happens, it hits you and you're like, oh shit, no, there's something weird going on.
Yeah, and is there something wrong? Not wrong, but is Dylan having issues?
Yeah.
There's the idea, the suggestion that maybe he has childhood schizophrenia,
Mm-hmm.
and spoiler alert, and we'll discuss it at the time, but Heather may also feel that too.
Yeah.
And I've just realised what this film is kind of like the Babadook.
Yeah. No, it's a lot like the Babadook.
A lot
yeah.
like the Babadook,
Yeah.
actually, when you think about it.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And
no,
I just realised that I was talking, like, oh my god, of course. Dylan isn't as...
annoying.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted a better way to say... No, it's true. It's accurate. As annoying as the kid in the Babadook. But it's similar themes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, wow. Okay.
Make for a very good double bill. Heather explains... now, this is the scene I was on about earlier. Heather explains heaven to Dylan and tells him she can't get into his dreams of him, but she'll always be waiting for him when he gets back. And, oh my god, this scene, Heather Langenkamp is acting.
Yes.
Like, this would be her Oscar scene. Like, she is going for it. And
she is.
It's incredible to watch.
And I like how honest she is. She's like, no, that only happens in the movies.
Yeah.
Which one?
3, 4, and 5.
Yes. That only happens in the sequels.
So you haven't watched those yet? You haven't even finished the first film?
No, you've been watching it in parts. You haven't even seen the gay one yet, for fuck's sake.
You didn't even plug the TV in.
Yeah.
Heather and but yeah, no, actually no, I'm not going to gloss over it. No, that performance stuff.
Yes,
seriously.
of course.
Like
yes.
when you think about Heather Langenkamp, and obviously aside from this, she's just been in a lot of smaller B movies, and she doesn't really get that chance to really give a big performance. And I feel like this is her moment, and I just feel like it deserves to be recognised way more than it is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, proud of her. Proud of her.
You should be.
Are
you gonna start crying?
No. But speaking of, the next scene is where Heather and John take Dylan to a playground, and Heather tells John how concerned she is about Dylan, and that she had a family member who ended up in an institution. So she starts telling him about her stalker as well, and he comforts her and says she's not crazy.
Do you know what's kind of camp?
What?
The idea of Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon going to a playground for a catch up. I don't know why John. I just don't understand John Saxon. Why that would be the place to take John Saxon.
It is camp.
It is camp. It's very camp. I love John Saxon in this film.
Yeah,
because it is kind of a bit like, what is he doing here?
Yeah.
But obviously the ending, and no spoilers at the moment, but the ending kind of helps justify his existence.
Yeah. Imagine if it was Amanda Weiss instead.
Amanda Weiss or Ronnie Blakely.
Yeah.
This
my
is,
god! Can you
and
imagine?
this is where I'm going to put it out there
that
Ronnie Blakely not being in this film is an injustice.
Yeah.
I have no idea why Ronnie Blakely's not in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I'm assuming it was her decision and she decided not to, and you know, that's good. That's okay. But I would have loved to have had her in the film.
That would have been even more camp in this scene if it was her there instead.
I feel like it would have made me. I don't know. It's John Saxon though, and I feel
like it's the dynamic because of, you know, where the first film ended and where it continues in Dream Warriors. You know, they've had that father and daughter relationship more than her and Ronnie Blakely had. Their parent and daughter relationship.
I suppose we have that connection from the third film too. Yeah, that's true.
Dylan climbs to the top of a rocket climbing frame at the park. He reaches up for the sky and falls off it, with Heather catching him just in time. And he turns to her and says, "God wouldn't take me." And honestly, the first time I saw this, oh my god, it was so emotional. This is a really sad scene.
It's very dark.
Yeah,
it is very dark.
Yeah.
The way he said, "God wouldn't take me."
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
definitely.
And intense too. Like really, really intense. Like the way it's shot and how it's intertwined with the conversation between Heather and John, the way it builds up. It's just fantastic filmmaking.
And I think this is definitely Wes Craven's way of saying this ain't your usual Nightmare on Elm Street sequel.
Yeah.
This is, you know, we're not having death scenes based on random parts of people's personalities.
Yeah.
You're not getting you're playing with power now.
No.
You're getting a kid throwing himself off a rocket in the middle of a park because God wouldn't take him. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. We're back to the original.
Yeah.
I was going to say back to basics. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Heather gets letters in the post from her stalker, and she calls up Robert and tells him about it and about her nightmares. He knows the Freddy she's talking about is more evil and darker. She asks how far along Wes is with the script, and Robert says he asked Wes at the funeral about it, and he said as far as Dylan trying to reach God.
Oh.
And it's revealed that Robert is painting the new version of Freddy.
Yes. Loving Robert Englund's round tinted glasses.
Yeah, and what about his swimming pool?
And he hasn't got a swimming pool.
He has. You see it in the background
No,
when he's
you
on the phone.
Don't. That's
Yes,
Wes
you do.
Craven.
No, Robert Englund has a swimming pool in the background when he's on the
Does
phone.
he?
Yeah.
They all have swimming pools.
Yeah, but it's not as big as Wes Craven's.
Is it not?
No.
Okay, so is it bigger than Heather's
About the
swimming
same.
pool? About the same.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because Chase is obviously putting bread on her table in
Yeah,
the pool in her
obviously.
back garden.
That night, Dylan starts sleepwalking again, whilst Freddy's claw rips through Heather's bed sheets and moves along to her face. Now, I forgot to ask you if you had any specific history with this film, or if it was just you watched it with the other ones.
I just watched it. I watched it in order. Yeah, and got to this one and watched it.
This is the first image I ever saw of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh.
Because I remember my dad had it, brought the VHS, and I remember this image of the claws in front of Heather's face was on the back cover, and that's the first thing I saw, and I thought it was the scariest thing ever. Yeah.
She's not in the bath at any point during this, is she?
No, but this is a really cool scene. I'm glad they went with this direction.
Yes.
The claw lifts up and disappears when she wakes up, only to find her sheets are ripped in real life. And she goes downstairs to find Dylan performing the Jump Rope Girls song in full with knives sellotaped to his fingers. And he attacks her, but she wakes up to find him repeating the Never Sleep Again line whilst walking in circles with Rex around the letters from the stalker, which spells out, answer the phone. I think the scene with Dylan and the knives on his fingers is really creepy. I think that was really well done.
Yeah, and it's again with child actors. There's a fine line, isn't there? And it always stays on the right side, and it's creepy. And like you said, he kind of perfected it in Pet Sematary as well.
Yeah, so you basically just have to do the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
The phone rings and she answers it. Freddy's tongue comes out of the phone and Dylan starts foaming at the mouth as the phone also starts foaming. And it's a great callback.
It's the one that you wanted.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the film doesn't just keep going to key moments in the original, but there are a few that had to have been there. The tongue out the phone. Spoiler alert, screw your pass.
Yeah.
Which I was pleased to see again. And
Tina's death. Yeah.
It ticks a few boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Does she say whatever you do, don't fall asleep?
She does.
She does, of course she does.
Heather takes a traumatized Dylan to the hospital, where we are finally introduced to Dr. Hefner, who suspects abuse. So she suggests that he remains under observation and asks if Heather has let Dylan watch her films because she thinks it could be dangerous, kids watching horror films. And it's the first thing she goes to.
It's true.
It's like she was just waiting for that excuse to bring it up. And Queen Lynn Shay of Insidious fame and There's Something About Mary is also there as a nurse with a fucking mullet. What is going on with Lynn Shay's... This nearly got biggest gasp from me. What is going on with Lynn Shay's hair?
I like it. What I don't understand is why Heather Langenkamp didn't recognise her as the woman who played her teacher in the original film. Because obviously everybody's playing themselves from the original film. Even Tuesday Night is at the funeral.
Yeah.
But Lynn Shay is in a different role.
Yeah.
So who played her high school
The hair's not that different, actually. Not too different
no,
from
it's
that.
not, actually.
Yeah. Bob's sister showing up to show him how to act.
Yeah.
But, the person who's showing everyone how to act is nurse, Dr. Hefner.
Yes.
She is... they're putting in a performance,
I love
and
it.
she wanted people to not like her.
Yeah.
Dylan won't talk to Heather, but signals that he wants Rex, and she tells him Rex is at home where she wants him to be, and then gives him instructions on how to get home, but tells him he needs to get better before he can go there. Something she's probably going to regret soon.
Yes.
Nurse Lynn Shay comes in to give him some medication to send him to sleep, and suggests that Heather goes home and gets some rest too. And when they leave the room, Dylan takes the pill out of his mouth and hides it under his pillow. Nurse Lynn Shay, just any more to say about Nurse Lynn Shay?
I mean, she kind of does what she did in the original film, where she just plays a role based around a career, and she does it. She does it well. She doesn't have much to do as a nurse.
No.
She convincingly hands over a pill.
Yeah.
And that's great. Good for her. But she doesn't get the juicier nurse roles.
She doesn't know.
So, soon there's a nurse that keeps repeatedly getting beaten up, and I kind of wish that was Lynn Shay.
Heather visits nightmare creator Wes Craven, who admits to having nightmares that the films captured an ancient supernatural entity which has now been freed after the film series ended with the release of Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. See what you did? See what you did,
true.
Creating that shitty fucking film.
Another reason to hate Freddy's Dead.
He's really got it in for Freddy's Dead in this film.
And justifiably too, because I'm assuming he sat down and watched them like back to back, or at least like one each.
He
day.
did.
And then by the end, he must have been so exhausted, just been like, "What is this shit?
Yeah.
Why are Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold in this film?"
Yeah, at that point, that would be the last thing you see of the franchise. I mean, nowadays we're lucky enough to have this and Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah.
But imagine doing a rewatch of it all, and then that's what you have to. That's the conclusion.
This is the ending to what I created. You'd be like, no, girl, no. I've seen some criticism of Wes's acting over the years. I don't think it's that bad.
He just acts like he does in interviews. He acts like Wes Craven.
Yeah.
What more can he do? He's just acting like himself.
I think, thankfully and deliberately, Wes Craven, Bob Shaye, and Sarah Risher weren't given juicier roles.
No.
So they were never sort of in danger of being killed. None of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's when the strings would have shown up.
Yeah.
I think that's when the non-acting would have been very apparent.
Yeah.
If they had to actually act.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean.
No, definitely. He explains that in the guise of Freddy, the entity now focuses its primary foe on Heather, as killing her will allow it to enter the real world.
Oh.
As the scene ends, we are shown the script on Wes's computer, and it matches the exact same way the scene ended.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't he make a comment like, I just use my computer now?
Yeah.
Very 1994.
I use my dial-up.
I use my dial-up.
But I think it's a really nice touch, like seeing that the script describes how the scene ends. It's just so good. Heather returns home and reads upon sleep deprivation in children, something that leads to her having flashbacks to the rest of the film.
Yeah, true Nancy style. She does her research.
Yeah.
She also reads up on childhood schizophrenia as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she drinks a big mug of coffee.
She does.
So she's
back into survival.
This is Nancy. She's back into survival now. And I like this. I like, and it's interesting to have Heather maybe questioning things.
Yeah.
Questioning her own sanity, but also Dylan's sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And not, just going to, Freddy's back.
Yeah.
Maybe being aware of the fact of how insane that sounds.
Yeah.
How beyond belief that would be. And I like that. And I do. I don't know if the writer director of Babadook has cited this as a source of what's it called? Inspiration. I don't know that, but I think it's very interesting, the themes, the mother and child dynamic.
If I remember right, I think the dad in that film also died in a car crash.
Oh, could have. Yeah, that would be interesting.
And long coat and a hat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not a gay icon though. I don't think Freddy in this one's a gay icon.
He calls her a bitch.
Yeah.
He still talks like a drag queen.
It's true, but he's too menacing. He's not camp enough.
No, he's like pageant drag in this film, isn't he? Like he's just got that moody cunty look.
He's
on
very
him.
serious.
You know, he's very serious. He's a fashion girly now.
He'll throw marbles into your feet to get ahead.
No, absolutely. He is. I'll sue the bitch.
None of the true beauties are here.
Yeah, that is Freddy in this film.
Crystal LaBeija.
The Babadook took full inspiration. Her TV switches on. Have a TV switched on by itself with a news report about the death of Chuck and Terry.
Not Chuck and Terry.
It's Chuck and Terry. It's also revealed that the claws are missing. There's another earthquake which causes the power to go out in Heather's house. She hears creaking, and Freddy bursts out of the closet and says, "Miss me?"
Miss me.
He attacks her and pins her down onto the bed and calls her Nancy. The earthquake starts again, and she manages to... What? What's so funny about that?
Well, I mean, it's a bit homophobic, isn't it? Does anyone say that anymore?
Nancy?
Yeah, like Nancy boy. Does anybody say that anymore?
I don't think so.
Was that ever? Do you know that as a thing?
I've been called many homophobic things.
But never Nancy. No. Never Nancy boy.
I wish someone called me Nancy.
Nancy.
So I'd be like, yes, Nancy Thompson. I wish.
Do you not? Oh, I just yeah. I'm sure it was a term very, very old fashioned. Very old fashioned.
Anyway, I was just going to talk about how scary the scene is.
Well, yeah, I mean,
homophobia is scary. So
an interesting little tidbit for you. Yeah, I think very, very, very old-fashioned to call someone a Nancy.
Thanks, placebo. Anyway, so yeah, he calls her Nancy, so he sees her as her character in the film.
Oh, very meta.
Yeah, she manages to push Freddy off her and he claws her arm as he falls. Yeah, this scene is so creepy, and I like that balance they have in this film where he has his little quotes, he has his little quips, but he's still so menacing that it doesn't feel like it did in the sequels.
Yeah.
It feels like it did in 1 and 2, where he was actually scary.
Yeah. Yeah, he's always been a villain that talks.
Yeah.
He is always going to have those quips. And in the original, he did, but still managed to be creepy and scary. And also in part 2, he's quite creepy.
He is.
You know, and it's back to that full circle moment. And I loved seeing this. The first time I saw it, to see the Heather character, she's a character in this film, the Heather character be in the same position as Nancy.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is.
Like, really cool. That meta-ness.
Heather rushes to the hospital where she finds Julie, who has also had a bad dream, but about Dylan. Dr. Hefner tells her there's no evening visits and tends to the slashes on her arm. Heather tells Dr. Hefner that she got the slashes during an earthquake, but she says there was no earthquake, and Heather lets it slip that Dylan is afraid of Freddy. And you can see a little twinkle in Dr. Hefner's eye where she's like, oh, fuck, now I've got something to go on.
Yeah, she definitely blames Heather's scary movies. And to be honest, I don't understand, because Hellraiser Judgment wouldn't be out for another 14 years. So...
Wow.
If he had watched that, I would understand.
Yeah. Yeah, she's disgusted that he knows about Freddy, isn't she?
Yeah, no, she is. Yes. Yeah.
She's discussing that he knows about Freddy, and Heather's response is, "Oh, come on, every kid knows about Freddy. He's like Santa Claus or King Kong."
King Kong.
I mean, yeah,
It's true.
yeah,
It's true. But she says it's hard to distinguish whether that's a good thing or not.
yeah. Heather goes to sit with Dylan, who is now sleeping in an oxygen tent after an incident earlier. Dylan rips open the tent, tells Heather he's almost there in a deep voice, and vomits dark green stuff all over her. In the style of The Exorcist.
Yeah, I hate vomiting in films. I was like, ew, that's disgusting.
Dr. Hefner rushes in and says she will cut the evil out of him. She lifts up the Freddy glove, and for that 1 second, that imagery of Dr. Hefner with the Freddy glove, living for it.
Living. And the actress, forgive me, too many names in these podcast episodes. She said that she felt something come over her when she had that glove on.
Fran Bennett.
Fran Bennett, excuse me. Yeah, she felt the glove changed her in some way.
Yeah.
I love the dialogue here when Dr. Hefner, she says, no anesthetic, you say? Screw it then. I'm going in. Little buggers full of something I don't like. Let's get him open. Good and proper. Cut this evil out of him. Love it.
Heather wakes up to find Dylan is gone. She demands to see him. She runs out the room, and someone says, "Do you have a pass?" And she says, "Screw your pass."
Yes. She also has the iconic grey stripe in her hair.
She does.
And she looks 30 years old.
She does.
She looks 30.
Heather, she goes to see Dylan, who's with Julie. Dr. Hefner tells her that Dylan isn't leaving until they figure out what's wrong with him. And Heather says, "Dylan, whatever you do until Mummy gets back, don't fall asleep."
Of course. How did I miss that?
And that is when Julie notices the streak, the 20-year-old streak in her hair. Heather...
So I might do something similar
Oh my
with
God,
my hair. I
it's-
quite like it.
It's an even bigger sleigh now than it was back then. Like, just business mum Heather with a grey streak. It's like, yes, please. What a
Favorite
queen.
grey streak: the original, the Hypnosil version, or the New Nightmare?
I think the New Nightmare.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it is a sleigh in the other two as well.
yeah.
Heather attempts to go home to get Rex for Dylan, but security take her to an office for Dr. Hefner to give her another good talking to.
Yeah, with the police as well. And this is where I'm like, okay, I mean, the evidence is piling up against you, Heather. This is very strange behaviour.
Yeah.
So the doctor is kind of justified in being suspicious about what's going on.
Julie tries unsuccessfully to keep the nurses from sedating the sleep-deprived Dylan. One of them gives him a jab to send him to sleep, and Julie's like, "You bitch," and punches her.
Not Lynn Shay. This should have been
No.
justice for Lynn Shay. She should have been punched in New Nightmare.
She threatens to stab both nurses with needles containing stuff that they don't know what it is. So they leave and she locks them out. Meanwhile, Dr. Hefner asks if Heather has any history of recreational drugs in the family and suggests that they put Dylan in foster care whilst they do tests on Heather. After Dylan falls asleep from the sedative, Freddy appears behind Julie and holds her up in the air. Now, this is a fantastic scene and a recreation of one of the great scenes in the franchise, Tina's death. The nurses open the room and she's just there floating in the air. And then Freddy turns to Dylan and is like, "Hey, Dylan, ever played Skin the Cat?" And then drags Julie onto the ceiling and she reaches for Dylan as he reaches for her. Freddy snaps her neck and lets her drop to the ground as Dylan calls out for Rex and runs away. And it's just so fucking good.
It is. And to have the Rod character replaced with a child makes it even creepier.
Yeah.
And it being in a hospital, obviously Freddy's got his hat and his big coat on.
Leather pants.
His leather pants on. Which gives it a little bit of camp energy. It's the stretching to hell. It's like Okay, well, move a little bit forward. It's like in both films, the outstretched arm. It's like Rod and Dylan. It's like, well, you're not going to reach. Come on, get your ass up and help out. Great visual, but it didn't quite make sense. Like, get over there. But also, like, what is Dylan gonna do if he holds onto her hand? Like, he's gonna be able to pull her off the ceiling.
I mean, realistically, in the moment, would either of them be thinking of any of this?
I don't know.
While she's being dragged along the fucking ceiling.
I know.
Tracy,
trying to make an entertaining podcast here.
Tracy Middendorf really puts in a performance here, and she's so fucking good. And it's a shame that she gets killed.
Someone had to die.
Yeah.
Someone had to die, and yeah, it had to be the babysitter.
Yeah.
Because what? You've had what? One death? Two? Well, I mean, I suppose you have Chuck and Terry.
Yeah.
Poor Chuck and Terry. But you've only had one other death scene so far.
Yeah.
So you do need to show what the stakes are, you know? To up that tension.
Heather goes to the room where Julie was killed, gives the nurse that was punched an elbow to the stomach. Not her day.
Justice for Lynch.
And
she would have acted the hell out of that elbow to the stomach.
I mean, to be fair, she deserves it. Like, after she gives him the jab, she's like, "Oh, all done," and like sarcastically looks at Julie. So, I mean, I think she deserved it.
She did, from the perspective of someone who knows that this dream demon man is going around and killing people. Because we know that, it's justified. But I don't think she was really thinking, oh yeah, Freddy's real.
There is one nurse where when Heather starts freaking out earlier and she's like, Freddy's got Dylan, and the nurse is like, Freddy who? You mean like something like Freddy Krueger or something like that?
Yeah.
Heather
King Kong, Santa Claus.
Heather realizes Dylan has headed home with the direction she gave him earlier and drives to find him whilst calling John to help her. Heather finds Dylan walking across the freeway whilst a giant Freddy appears in the sky. And this brings back that, comical, sort of cartoony thing you'd see in the later sequels, but still manages to be really creepy.
Well, this is Dream Warrior.
Yeah.
Dream Warriors, isn't it? When he's in the sky and he's puppeteering the dude.
Yeah.
So it's reminiscent. I don't think it's a coincidence that the films that mostly get referenced are the original and Dream Warriors, seeing as Dream Warriors was in part written by Wes Craven.
Yeah.
So I think it's going back to those films more than any of the others.
Yeah.
And I like it. I love the visuals. I love the idea of Heather and Dylan, but Heather mainly trying to reach him past the freeway, the scariness of all this ongoing traffic going incredibly fast.
Yeah.
We've all been on motorways, we've seen them, and it's that weird thing where we kind of, when you're in a car, this is a little off topic, but when you're in a car, doesn't it feel like you're going a little slower?
Yeah.
But when you're near a motorway and you see how fast that traffic's going, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's like really fast. So trying to like dodge it, Frogger style, sort of resonates as well. So it's really quite a tense scene.
Yeah.
And I love the imagery of the dozens of extras dressed as Freddy running up to that wall and peeping over it. Yeah. I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, it's all really intense, and another great example of why Wes Craven's such a good filmmaker. Freddy starts taunting Dylan, he dangles him over the traffic with a massive claw. Heather is almost being hit by multiple cars.
She's causing a few accidents, I'm not gonna lie. I hope no one was seriously injured in any of those.
Upon returning home, though, Heather realizes that reality is starting to overlap with Freddy's make-believe realm, with Saxon as Nancy's father, Don Thompson, and her street, the exterior of her house, and her clothes have all transformed into Nancy's, reclaiming that fucking house as Nancy's house and not Freddy's house.
Yes, it's about fucking time.
When
Freddy Krueger did not live there.
No.
Don Thompson.
Donald
Thompson. He just said, "Don't start losing it like your mother did." I was like, "Where is Ronnie Blakely? What was she doing around this time? Was she still married to Wim Wenders?"
I don't know actually. When Heather, well, just not starring in this film, that's what she was doing. When Heather embraces Nancy's role, Freddy emerges completely into reality via Dylan's bed, in the style of when he appears at the end of the first film. When you see him rising from the sheets, and it's such a good image. He abducts Dylan to his world, and the original score starts to play.
Yeah, this is what I love from this on as well. I love the whole film, but I really like this ending.
Yeah.
I really like it. It's giving bigger budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely giving bigger budget. And it's that fairy tale aspect come back.
Yeah.
And I think it's very clever of Wes Craven. And I was speaking a little on it earlier, but I think having the fairy tale aspect is very clever of Wes Craven, because fundamentally a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street films are about Freddy Krueger playing on people's fears.
Yeah.
In their dreams. Well, what is a child fearful of? Not a lot, It's not part 6 where he has a mother who's forcing him to be a model. It's 5, whatever. All of those are the same film. It's fairy tales. It's the story. It's the scary Hansel and Gretel stories that he's been reading that he is scared of. So I love that aspect to it, and it also is a way of saying we've got $8 million. First film was $1.1 million.
Mm-hmm.
This is $8 million.
Yeah.
Let's give Wes a little more to play with.
Yeah. No, definitely. Heather finds a trail of Dylan's sleeping pills in the style of breadcrumbs and follows him to a hellish construct of Freddy's boiler room. And it is a hellish construct. We even have fucking dragons and stuff flying around.
Yeah.
If you look carefully, there's all these creatures flying around and everything. And it is ambitious. It is so ambitious, and I love that Wes Craven went there.
There's a sort of bird's eye view of it, and it's giving Hellbound, Hellraiser 2.
Yeah.
But it looks great. It really does. The set design is top notch.
Yeah. Heather finds a script in there for the upcoming Nightmare, and it reveals there was no movie, only her life. She's reunited with Dylan, and Freddy appears and says, "Meet your maker," as he throws her into a pit of snakes. And he's like, "Pick a pet for the Rugrat, bitch."
But I think there's a lot of metaphors here as well. Yeah. To have Freddy Krueger tell, Heather Langenkamp to meet her maker.
Yeah.
Because this is Heather Langenkamp has been synonymous with this series for most of her life now. She was 20 years of age when the first film came out. So she's always been linked to it. No matter what she's done in her career, she will always be Nancy Thompson. So much so that she made a fantastic documentary called I Am Nancy about the character. And in a way, Freddy Krueger to say, "Meet your maker," Freddy Krueger has made her career. But then to throw her into a pit of snakes, I mean, is that not the
fan base?
The fan base.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To say, you're synonymous with this is going to follow you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But there is going to be some bad things because of this as well. And the stalker aspect, yes, we've said it was due to just the 10 of us, but her having that bigger role and that bigger presence was because of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So being fed to the snakes, I think, is very metaphorical.
Yeah, no, I think so. She fights back. She attacks him with a snake and says, "Fuck you." Freddy fights off Heather and chases Dylan into a furnace. As Dylan moves further away, Freddy stretches his arm out to grab him in the style of his long arms in the first film.
And it looks better this time.
It does.
It doesn't. Budget. It doesn't look like what was it, like broom handles?
Yeah. Heather runs to save him in slow motion, but he has to run up some wet stairs.
Yes, again, looks much better than the original.
Yeah. Freddy opens his mouth wide, Holly Jervis style, to try eating Dylan, and Heather stabs Freddy just in time.
That image, I love that image of his huge head, and the effect looks great. Of just Dylan's head, like about to be eaten. That's a massive gob.
Freddy responds to this by literally wrapping his tongue all around Heather.
Yeah, this is again, this might be my favorite visual. The idea of Freddy's incredibly long tongue trying to smother Heather Langenkamp. It's got a real campiness to it.
Yeah,
but it's not taking it as far as the sequels did. But still, it looks great. You know, and it's silly. It is silly.
Yeah, because he's still in a fantasy world where he can do what he wants. So, you know, it fits with it still, but it's not too over the top.
Yeah.
Dylan stabs the tongue and saves her, and he and Heather push Freddy into the furnace and light it, destroying both the monster and its reality. Dylan and Heather emerge from under his blankets, and Heather finds a copy of the recent events in a screenplay at the foot of the bed. Inside is written, "Thanks from Wes for defeating Freddy and playing Nancy one last time." Her victory helps imprison the entity of the film franchise's fictitious world once more. And Dylan asks if it's a story, and Heather agrees, before opening the script and reading from its pages, because there's nothing like a cute story about his father's death.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've never got.
Yeah.
Why is she happily reading this story to her son?
There's a big chapter in this about your dad dying. Well, your dad scratching his balls and then dying. The idea that Wes Craven's got on his computer and typed about Heather's real life husband scratching his balls. I don't know what that says about Wes Craven, or says about Chase. Is he known around the set for scratching his balls a lot?
Maybe.
But
that is Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
That is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Do you know what's so fantastic about that film?
What?
You are always on Heather and Dylan's side.
Yeah.
And after all the sequels that came before it, I think it's genius of Wes Craven to be able to do that. To be able to create a film where we are not on Freddy Krueger's side. We're not just waiting for him to kill the next disposable teen. We actually care about Heather and Dylan as characters. And I think the meta-ness of it really helps with that. And I think the screenplay and the script and those beautiful moments between them as mother and son really help with that. And what you get in return is a very tense film.
Yeah.
A horror film with actual horror that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
And it isn't comedy. You know, there's a little bit of campness to it, particularly at the end. That's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
You know, but it keeps it serious. And it works, and it's effective. Yeah. And it's something that Wes Craven does so well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you know, this is 2 years before Scream. I appreciate that Wes Craven was like, no, even though this is a flop, I know this is a great concept, so I'm just going to do it again.
Yeah, and obviously Kevin Williamson was a big part of Scream's sort of meta-ness as well.
Yeah. But it's really a work of genius. It's so ahead of its time and just perfects, you know, what was great about the first Nightmare on Elm Street while still having those fun little nods there to the sequels as well. I think it's amazing. I I really love it.
I think it's a film that over time people appreciate more and more.
Yeah.
And newer generations are really understanding what the film is trying to do.
Yeah.
I suppose at the time, a lot of the fan base that the film was talking about was expecting an old school Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. That's what they were expecting. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I love these films. You know, we've critiqued them over the last few weeks, but I love all of his films. I would happily sit down and marathon these films.
Yeah.
I love them. It's my favorite franchise. So I don't think there's particularly anything wrong with that, but I think New Nightmare was maybe just a little too different for people.
Yeah.
At the time.
Shall we give out some awards?
Absolutely.
The much deserved award that she deserves, Biggest Queen, has to go to Heather.
It's Heather Langenkamp. If I remember correctly, I think whenever she's been in the film, she's always won.
Yeah.
I love Heather Langenkamp. She's a scream queen. She comes across so well in all of her roles that we've seen her in, particularly in these films, Nightmare on Elm Street films, and in interviews. Like I said, I Am Nancy is a great documentary, and she just seems like a genuinely nice woman.
Yeah. Biggest gasp, I give it to Dylan on the rocket in the playground.
I went with Julie's death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obvious reasons.
Best dialogue, I have, "Hey Dylan, ever play to skin the cat?"
I went with, "No anesthetic, you say? Screw it then. I'm going in. Little boogers full of something I don't like."
And that's camp. I had to give it to Julie punching a nurse and threatening her with a syringe.
I went with Sarah Risher, Bob Shea, and Wes Craven playing themselves.
That's true. Ratings, I give it 10 cute stories about your dad's death out of 10.
I give it 9 Freddy Krueger crotch tickles out of 10.
And masterpiece, trash, basic, or a Campbell bunch of fun, I'm giving it a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece.
It's available on DVD, Blu-ray, and video on demand. And if you enjoyed this, I recommend checking out the obvious one, Scream.
Yes, and if you enjoyed this, and particularly the mother-son relationship, apparently the Babadook, that isn't what I wrote down, but yes, absolutely. But also the Ring remake.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And shall we give a ranking?
I think so.
I'm going to go from worst to best.
Okay. I'm not going to lie. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to agree on all of these. Let's see.
At number 9, it is the 2010 remake.
Absolutely. Yeah, bottom of the barrel shite. I would never rewatch that film ever again.
No. Number 8 is Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare.
Yeah. It's the worst of the original sequels. Yeah.
Number 7 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child.
I agree, definitely.
Number 6 is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 5 is Freddy vs. Jason.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Number 4 is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, it changes all the time. But currently, it's number 3, New Nightmare. Number 2, Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
And one thing that never changes is number 1 is the original.
The original. I completely agree. It's interchangeable between New Nightmare and Dream Warriors. But for me, I think Dream Warriors just pips it to the post.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, I suppose for camp value. Just, it doesn't really matter ultimately. Because I like I said, apart from the remake, I'd rewatch all of these films.
Yeah. And that concludes our discussions on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Apart from Freddy vs. Jason, which will be discussed on a Friday the 13th eventually.
Yes. It'll all come to a point. One point.
But I adore this franchise so much, and I'll never get tired of it.
No, I love it. I love Freddy Krueger. I love the original film so much. It's an all-time masterpiece. It's probably in my top 10 films. In terms of enjoyment. I just think it's fantastic. There's nostalgia involved with all of it. If anyone says I'm looking to get into horror films, I would just give them the box set and say, have fun.
Yeah, definitely. We are Horror Cult Trash Over on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Horror Cult Trash on Twitter. I'm Derek Gaz92 on Letterboxd, Gazmo205 on Instagram, and GazCruise92 on Twitter.
I'm Chris Barker823 on Instagram and Letterboxd.
And we're also Gasp Horror Festival across all social media, accepting submissions for next year's festival. Give us a rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, like a follow on everything else. Next week is the start of our third Nasty November. And because it's our third Nasty November, we are discussing Section 3 films all month. So these are the films that weren't prosecuted.
They weren't prosecuted, but they were considered video nasties.
Yes, you still get a slap on the wrist if you own them.
The BBFC were pissed off. Mary Whitehouse got her knickers in a twist still.
And yeah, we have some great films coming up, including, two of the greatest films ever made.
I was going to say, the Category 3 ones. I mean, there's some fucking all-time masterpieces in that one.
Yeah.
We're not talking cheapo Nazi exploitation with these.
No.
Thankfully.
But starting off, Nasty November will be a 70s horror gem. We are going to be discussing Alice, Sweet Alice with John from Life's Better Song podcast.
Very excited for that episode. We've worked with John on the Better Song podcast. We've recorded a few episodes with him, and if you remember, he joined us when we discussed Rope during Pride Month.
Did.
So very excited to speak to him again.
Yeah, and get an American's take on the video nasties.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll be back same time, same place next week.
Bye.